Good morning. It is Thursday, so that means it's food and fitness. And I have my handsome husband here who's going to be helping to explain cardiorespiratory fitness, which is the topic we've been talking about all week. So hope you can see me. The lighting's not super great here, but so thanks for joining. I really appreciate those of you who've been joining these live sessions or watching the replay. I really want to provide as much help to you as possible when it comes to food and fitness for women over 40. So thank you for being here. If you're watching live, if you could comment below and ask any questions if you'd like. If you're watching the replay, just comment that as well and any questions or what you thought. So this week, our topic has been cardiorespiratory or cardiorespiratory fitness, or CRF. And I'm a huge, huge believer in CRF. This is what I did my doctorate in at CSU. CRF is so important for women to know about, for anybody to know about, men and women. But I have found that most women don't know that much about it. Or if they do, it's like, well, how do you measure it? How do I know what my CRF is? And then what do I do about it? So I really wanted to spend some time talking about this. And so Kurt, who helps with the Women in Motion program that we do, is going to explain how to measure your CRF and what you can do about it, as well as answer any questions. So if you guys have questions, feel free to put them down below. So I am going to turn it over to Kurt.
Hi. Pleasure to be here today. I'm walking on the treadmill to demonstrate what cardiorespiratory fitness can be. What is CRF that we talk about? Actually, from a physiologic standpoint, it's the body's ability, specifically the heart and the lungs, to get oxygen into the body, transferred to your skeletal muscles, where there it produces the energy that allows us to do our work, or activities. Why is cardiorespiratory fitness or CRF important? Well, a number of studies over the years have shown that it is a predictor of who's going to do well in terms of all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease. It's also been linked with type 2 diabetes, incidence of stroke, things like this. Mortality and morbidity issues that we have to be concerned about. As a physician, I performed hundreds of treadmills as a way to screen people for cardiovascular disease. And we also look at their CRF at that time. It's in the hospital. It's expensive. We will have a person hooked up to an EKG machine. We walk them on a treadmill, measure their blood pressure, and then we're able to calculate their cardiorespiratory fitness. We know that people in the lowest percentile have the highest risk for all-cause mortality, and we work with them on getting an exercise program. The other thing that we've learned, and Dr. Stephen Blair is a leader in this, is that cardiorespiratory fitness, CRF, is independent of your body mass index, or BMI. What does that mean simply? It means that you can be fit and fat, And that thin people with a low CRF, which we measure, are at a higher risk of dying, or having significant illness than a fat person who has a high CRF. So just because you may be thin or big or large, you want to go ahead and work on your cardiorespiratory fitness, It's also called cardiorespiratory endurance. It's also shortened down to cardio, But again, it's where we're working the heart and the lungs to get oxygen into our skeletal muscles so that we can do endurance exercise for a longer period. Now, a simple test that you can do that we like to do in our Women in Motion program, and we do this at the beginning and then towards the end so that we can help women measure their CRF, is what we call the Rockport test. Rockport test has been studied and validated meaning it's gone through a lot of rigorous exam of it to make sure that it's accurate. It's best done at a track, like a high school track or middle school track, something that's level and flat and that you know the distance. What you do is you warm up for 10 minutes of walking, then you perform the test, and the test is based on the time it takes you to walk 1 mile briskly. You cannot run during the test because that would affect the results. So it's really walking somewhere probably in the neighborhood of maybe 2 to 4.5 miles per hour. While you're walking, you're going to find yourself working harder during that time, and that's what we expect. And you should be somewhat fatigued at the end of the mile walk. You need to time that mile walk down to seconds. So you want to have some type of a watch with a second hand or a stopwatch even, or you can use your smartphone. They usually have a timer app on it that way.
Or and measure your heart rate.
You also want to measure your heart rate. Thank you, Cindy, because that's very important. We take your maximal heart rate that you get, and you can record that by recording it on with your radial artery at your wrist at the base of your thumb. You can record it by pressing on the carotid artery, just one side on your neck here. Or a lot of us, if you have a sports watch, that may record your radial pulse with the technology we have nowadays and give you that, or you can even wear a chest strap and do it. But it's important that you get a reasonably accurate heart rate when you finish that 1 mile test. Then we have a link that we send out, but basically there's a calculator that puts in age, sex, weight, and heart rate, as well as your 1 mile walk time, and it will calculate your cardiorespiratory fitness, or CRF. We can look at that and say, hey, that's great, or we can probably do some work to improve this here, and work with you to design the program that will work on your CRF as well as also helping with strengthening. Mm-hmm. Then in 6 weeks, we'd like to recheck that to see how it's doing. Mm-hmm. Now, CRF, there is a degree of that is inherited, right? Yeah. So, some of it it's based on the genetics of things. So we can usually improve CRF to some degree, but there is probably a limit to how high you can take it. And CRF can range from anything. Well, what we talk about when we talk about CRF, we talk about METs, or metabolic equivalents. And those can range from anything from 0 if you're sleeping, laying on your bed, just breathing, all the way up to 80 or 90, which some of the world's best cross-country skiers or marathon runners or cyclists may have. And again, there's an inherited component, but there's also a component that happens because of your training.
That's the larger component, is right. Your fitness level.
And that's why we want to bring this up to people, because we want you to be strong, but we also want you to be fit.
Yes.
All right? And it can happen in any size. So what we'd like you to do, check out our program. Cindy's going to talk a little bit more about it. And then as part of your program, you'd be doing this Rockport test for cardiovascular or cardiorespiratory fitness, or CRF. And that way we'll have that as a marker for you, so it'll allow you to know where you're at, and then we can measure it later.
Oh, we have a question here, and then I have a few things I want to say. The question says, we have an oximeter. Does that help some in measuring this?
Okay,
good question.
Very good question. So a pulse oximeter, usually you can wear it on your fingertip, you can wear it on your earlobe, or you can wear it on your forehead, measures your oxygen saturation. That is a different measurement, and it's a very specific measurement of the oxygen concentration in your bloodstream. It really doesn't give you doesn't correlate with CRF per se. It's a very specific. It's actually considered sort of a vital sign at this point. Now, if you had a very low pulse ox, say less than 90, that is concerning, and you probably want to have that evaluated further by a healthcare worker. All right. Most of us, when we exercise and do our Rockport test, our oxygen saturations measured by a pulse oximeter are going to be in the 90s, unless you have a long history unless you have a history of lung disease. So, very good question on that. But really, what would be neat is to do the Rockport test, but then to check your pulse ox after you finished it and just see where it's at.
Yeah. But you don't have to have a pulse oximeter to do the Rockport test. I will upload the instructions on how to do the Rockport walk test after this video, and you'll be able to find that in the guides section. So up above here in the Facebook group, if you're in the Facebook group, it will be downloaded or uploaded, I should say. And you can read it there and download it and take it to a track and just follow the instructions. It's pretty easy, but you do need a stopwatch, and you need to be able to measure your heart rate. I prefer to measure mine here. Other people measure those here. I don't think the watches, when they measure heart rate, are as accurate as it is to just feel it and count it yourself. And you can just take your heart rate for 6 seconds and then multiply that by 10. And that's your heart rate per minute. Okay. So the test is pretty simple. All you need are walking shoes, a track, preferably a newer track, because the newer tracks are 400 meters and 4 times around the inside lane is a mile. If it's an older track, like I would say, I don't know, built
if
in
it's
the
older than say 20 years,
yeah,
it's probably likely to be a quarter-mile track, which is a little different.
A little different.
Now,
and the newer tracks will be 400 meters on the inside lane, so a little bit over 4 laps on the inside lane is a mile.
But for all intents and purposes,
that
isn't going to affect it that much if we just put in all of the other parameters that we're collecting.
Yeah.
All right.
But all you'll need to do is your heart rate and be able and just to walk as far as you can, or try to walk a mile, and measure the time it takes you. And then you'll need that, and your weight is factored into this. And age. And it's a formula that's been tested that will give you your CRF level. And then they have ranges you can look at. They have everything from high CRF to moderate to low. And if yours falls in the low category, then you want to obviously raise it to get into at least moderate or high. The research shows that people who go from low fitness to moderate, or low CRF to a moderate CRF, get the most bang for their buck in terms of prevention of heart disease, stroke, and all the other big diseases that we can get. It's you don't get as much if you already have a fairly high, moderate level, and then you go up to high. You still get improvements in your health and lower your risk for a lot of things. But the biggest change is from going from low to moderate. So for any of you who think that your CRF level might be low, it is well worth the time to find out what your CRF is and to improve it to at least the moderate category. And it doesn't take that much. You don't have to run marathons. You don't have to go out and do a ton of exercise. It's actually not that much, but it is important, I think, to have a plan or have somebody plan that out for you. How many days a week? How long should you walk or do the aerobic exercise that you want to do? And have somebody checking up on you, which is what we provide in Women in Motion. So we are making a plug for our 16-week program where we help you assess your CRF and help you improve it, in addition to strength and nutrition. So if you're interested in that program, please let me know. We've got several women here in the group that are in the program right now, and we're having a blast. We'd love to have you in there. We also are offering it at a discount right now. It's normally $9.99 for 16 weeks, and we're offering it now for $4.99. So that's a significant savings. So, but I will upload the Rockport walk test here in the group, the Facebook group. If you're watching outside of the group, please consider joining my Facebook group. It is for women 40 and over. But anyway, I'll upload the Rockport test to the guides section so you can download it from there and just do it on your own. I would highly suggest do that. Maybe grab a couple friends or family members and head to the track, and you all can measure your CRF level. So, Kurt, do you have anything else to say?
One of the things we found out is that some of the women in our program were concerned that their values were somewhat low. Now, again, these are general values. They're not as specific as when we tested in a hospital laboratory, but they're a good marker to start with. It also may be that you want to repeat the test in a week or so later just to see if it's accurate. Sometimes the calculations can be off. If you have questions, feel free to contact Cindy or myself on that, and we can help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot walk a mile yet, the Rockport test is not a good test to do. There are other tests that we could use to measure.
Yeah.
But it also indicates that your CRF probably is pretty low,
right,
and you need to do something about it.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yes. If you can't walk a mile, there are other tests that we would help you with in the program. But that is an indication that your CRF level is low. But the good news is you can bring that up fairly easily, with the right amount of exercise. And it's not every day, and it's not hardcore exercise. It's just going to be walking. You can bring that up, and by going from the poor, low CRF level to even a moderate, really lowers your risk for heart disease, stroke, some forms of cancer. And aside from all of that, the lower risk and all that, when you improve your fitness, you feel better. I mean, you're going to have more energy. You're going to be able to go about your daily activities much easier and be able to get out and do the things you want to do. So that is the big reason, I think, aside from lowering your risk for all the big diseases, is that you feel better every day and you're able to do more. And to me, that's worth quite a bit.
And that will also, as you raise your CRF, your ability to do the endurance exercises to improve your strength will also be better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, as a caveat, as a physician, if you have known sort of risk factors for cardiovascular disease or family history and things like this, you may need to check with your healthcare provider first before engaging it. The studies have shown that it's a safe test to perform by yourself, the Rockport test. But again, if you have certain things like known cardiovascular disease, you have a history yourself of having a stroke or a heart attack, I would recommend that you speak to your healthcare provider before you undergo that test yourself.
Yeah. And that's, I'm going to put another plug for Women in Motion. That's another perk that we have in our program, is that we have Kurt. And so throughout the program, throughout the 16 weeks, you have a medical person to ask all these kinds of questions. And I don't know of many fitness programs out there that have a physician on board. So just another plug for Women in Motion. We'd love to have you in there. Either way, download the Rockport walk test, go check your CRF, and get going on a walking or any type of aerobic exercise program, in addition to the strength training like we talked about in other live sessions. And you should be feeling pretty good. So if you have any questions, if you're watching the replay and you have questions, feel free to put them down below. I'd love to try to help. Again, thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful. And Kurt, you can stop walking now. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.